Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
So why don't we start by you're telling us a little bit about yourself and where you were in your career when kids showed up.
Sure. So my name's Erin Brenner. I'm the Chief Product Development Officer at Pear Therapeutics based in Boston. I have two boys, Christopher and Drew. They're 15 and 11. And my husband, Jamie, and I have been married for 21 years, and he works as well. So we're a two-career family. So kids came into the picture when I was working at GE Healthcare for a long time, and Christopher was born when I was in a product management role at GE, and then Drew came along actually at a career pivot point, still at GE, but when I was switching from one job to another, and really always interesting times to make multiple transitions at the same moment.
So what have you learned from trying to balance work and parenting? And what's your best advice for other working moms?
Yeah, I think my philosophy is sort of you can do anything, but you can't do everything all at the same time. And so trying to make sure that you are thinking about how to kind of integrate these things together, but knowing that there might be times when you need to flex a little bit more toward work and other times that you need to flex a little bit more towards home. And hopefully it all balances itself out over time. And as I mentioned, we're a two-career family. And so one thing that's been really important for my husband and me is how we have conversations about how this is going to work along the way, right? So there have been times when we moved for his job. We've moved for my job, including moving with a 3-year-old and 6-year-old to France for 3 years. We've had to be explicit at those moments about, who's leading and who's following at those times. And it's not forever, but sort of for this phase, either he's leading or I am, and that helps us to sort of make decisions on prioritization along the way. Doesn't mean it's always easy on a day-to-day basis, especially if we both need to travel at the same time or we both have some big work event that's happening, but at least again, kind of over time, make some of those conversations a little easier. And then I would also just say, kind of be kind to yourself, because there'll be days when the balance just doesn't feel right one way or the other. And you got to just work through those and hope that over time those balance out, or if they don't, then hopefully that can be a signal to yourself that maybe you need to take a look at why it's feeling that way on one side or the other.
Great advice. Very, very helpful. So how do you make yourself feel comfortable with the inevitable trade-offs that you have to make when you're juggling commitments at work and at home?
Yeah, I think a few things. One is especially when my kids were younger, it was a little harder for them to understand if I needed to travel or to go away. And I tried to have the conversations with them of, I'm doing something really important that makes a difference in the world. And I hope someday they'll have jobs that they love, where they feel like they're doing something really important for the world too. And that, they'll to try to have that conversation with them that sometimes it can be my choice as to whether I can be somewhere. And sometimes it's really not my choice. And when it can be my choice, that I will be there for those things that are really important. But that we have to know sometimes it's not. And for us to be able to, have open communication about those things. I also let them know they can always text me, and they know if I'm able to respond, I will respond right away, even just to check in. And, last week we had a dinner with our board, and my 11-year-old was texting me during dinner, and for us to be able to be like, are you okay? I can't really talk right now. And he knew that, yeah, he was just, wanting to check in, and then he knew I'd call him back as soon as I could a little bit later. So I think that sort of those trade-offs and kind of keeping communication really open on both sides. And again, knowing that it's not every day are you going to maybe be confident of the right choices, but hopefully over time they balance out, and that you can really be present in either of those situations when you need to be.
Do you have a favorite parenting story you'd like to share?
I do. We were living abroad in France for 3 years, and when we left, my kids were 3 and 6. I call it the Playgrounds of Europe tour because we did a lot of. I know where all the good playgrounds are, but there was one time that we were in the car. So my husband and I were in the front seat. The two boys were in the back seat, and they were a little bit older by then, maybe like 5 and 8. And was telling my husband about someone had asked me at work that day, because I was about to leave for a business trip. Well, who watches your kids while you're gone? And I was telling him, I said, their other parent, my husband, watches them when I'm gone. And the person looked at me and thought about it for a minute and then said, can he cook? And so I laughed. And then one of my older sons said to my younger son, hey, Drew, do you hear that? They think that dad can't cook when mom's on the road. And they both laughed heartily at the scenario. And I just loved this moment of them having watched my husband model that, like, hey, this is our family and this is what we do to make this whole thing work. And of course he cooks, and he may not cook the same things I would cook, but that's okay. And I just thought it was a really wonderful moment of my two boys acknowledging how much their dad does to make our family work. And it was a lovely moment.
That's fabulous. I love that story. That's really good. So it was great talking to you, and this was so much fun. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and your insights and stories with us.